Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Early Gates Show. This is going to be the first episode of Bigfoot Stories. And tonight we have a guest named Jill from Michigan. Hi, Jill. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I understand you've had some experiences in Colorado and Oklahoma, like throughout the years. And if you could, just walk us into it and we'll get started.
Absolutely. I will start with the Colorado story just because that's been on my mind lately. Every time it gets winter into melting season, that's what I've been thinking about. So I was up visiting my brother. He lived in Leadville, Colorado, and that is the 2 mile high city. Actually, it's 11,500 feet, something like that. And he was quite the fisherman, so he suggested I go to the lake and camp out for the night. It's a good experience, he said. So I drove up there, and it was just a beautiful place to be. It was a good feeling place. I did some fishing during the day and put the tent up. And
I don't mean to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
What year was this?
This had to have been 2006.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I think I've nailed it down to that year. And I remember it was just the snow was just melting. There's still piles of snow because, as you know, Colorado is kind of high desert. So the snow stays actually forever, even into June and July sometimes. But yep, we had pitched the tent. We had done some fishing. Went to bed. I went to bed kind of early because, when the sun goes down, the fire's only fun for so long, and then I start getting sleepy-eyed and thought I would just head on to bed and start early the next morning fishing. And I would assume it was around midnight, because the moon was just so bright. I actually thought something was lit up outside, and I kind of peeked my head out the tent and realized that it was just the stars. So I worked my way out of the tent and was just standing there on the rocks by the lake. Had come up quite far. I didn't set my tent very well. I thought I had it way far away from the water, but it actually, during the night, the water came up and was kind of at the bottom of the tent. So I was just standing out there enjoying, and I was just looking around. The world looked so different up there at night. I was looking at the mountainside, and I wanted to see if I could see any activity, like, animal activity on the side of the mountain. This lake is just surrounded by mountains. And I was looking up on the sides of the mountain, and you could almost see it like it was just almost day. The only difference is the trees looked black, because it was nighttime. And the first thing I heard was just splashing, and I figured it was that they had some trout that were quite active. I heard at night, they said, would splash out of the water and play, and just hearing the splashing. And I was following the shoreline, kind of just seeing if I could see what was the splashing. But that's when I saw what I assumed to be another person at first. And I think I saw this person, I'm going to call it a him, after he had obviously already saw me. And I remember he was squatting at first. He was squatting first, but his head was you could see enough to see that his head was turned towards me. But he was the one splashing in the water. And I kind of froze. And my first thought was maybe it's military, because it looked like he had maybe a big, thick, maybe even ghillie suit that he was wearing. But I was trying to make sense of why he was there and if there was any other people there, and looked back at the parking lot and there was no more cars there. They had all left. And so I wasn't sure quite what to do. I wasn't scared, but I was a bit, alarmed. Um, but he just looked my way, and after I looked back from looking at the parking lot, I could tell he was standing, and his shoulders were kind of square with me then. And I can't say that he just looked enormous or anything like, I would think a, a Bigfoot would look. But I could tell that he was different. He was different. He was built different. He kind of had, you could tell he had a long torso. That area was different than most. But again, I couldn't see. I was trying so hard to see him. I was straining my eyes to see him better, trying to see maybe what was on, even facial features I would have loved to see. I just couldn't. And the moon was kind of just right on top of us both, honestly. So I thought I would be able to see him better, and the first sound I heard from him, and I'm going to call it a him because I just felt like it was. I don't know. I can't explain it, but the first sound was that real. It was almost not a snort, but it was a huff. That's all I can think of. Is the first sound I heard from him was a huff, but it had some bass to it, boy. It was almost, you could almost feel how guttural the sound was that he'd made. And then I knew that was nothing that I had heard before. Well, from, anybody I had met anyways. And what it really sounded like is, if you've ever seen a bear or been around a bear or seen a show with a bear, it's that real deep, just guttural sound. And that kind of alarmed me because I was thinking, okay, that it's something different. I knew it was something different, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I didn't feel the need to run. I actually was stuck to the spot. I remember there was a flashlight right inside the door, but I could not make myself move. I didn't want him to really go away. I didn't want to scare him away, but I kind of didn't want him to stay either. It was a weird feeling. I wish I would have shown the flashlight on him just to get some kind of details for you, but I didn't. And we stayed there kind of staring at each other. I kind of panicked a little bit when I noticed that he was maybe closer than he was the last time I had looked at him, because I was looking around to see what the other noise I was hearing, kind of like a squawkle. That's all I can explain it. It was just something different, something different than wildlife. It was just a sound, a higher pitched sound. My eyes were darting back and forth on him and then kind of around me to make sure. I still wasn't sure what was happening at the time. So, but I had noticed I caught his last step, and I must have reacted to that, because he also reacted. He stopped, and I think it was a forward step. I'm assuming it was. But that is the only time I was like, okay, I don't like that. I we stood there for maybe not even seconds. It felt a lot longer, but then I heard him. I heard rocks is what I heard, like rocks. That's all I can imagine that sound being is every time you could tell he was stepping backwards. He wasn't turning his back on me, but he was kind of just slinking back backwards, step by step. But every time he took a step, I heard the rocks. And I didn't really, I couldn't see what was happening, but that's what I heard. And it was almost like when he got into the shade of the trees, he was gone. Like I really didn't hear much. I was trying so hard to hear something or see something. I really didn't see where he went. He literally just melted into the shadows. I don't know which place, which direction he went. But the next morning, I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Yeah, I think I probably didn't even go back in the tent for at least 2 hours, just watching for him or somebody, something to happen. But the next day, when I told my brother, and he found it very comical, apparently, we went up there and looked for footprints but all the places that he was all the rocks. Like for some reason, there were no footprints because there were just all these rocks where he would have been stepping. So I didn't say much more about it. I didn't have a cell phone at that. I probably wouldn't have been able to use a cell phone anyway, but that was my turquoise lake encounter anyways.
That sounds like quite the night. Do you know, what do you think it was doing at the water? Do you think it was fishing or drinking, or what do you think?
He was either washing his face or he was drinking. He was hand over fist. It looked like just either washing his face or drinking the water. But that was the action he was doing. He was just kind of crouched and, left hand, right hand moving simultaneously. So if I had to guess, it looked like he was drinking, honestly.
Do you think that it knew you were there, like before you popped out of the tent?
Yeah.
It just didn't care whether
Well,
whatever it was.
I don't know if he knew I was in the tent. If he's been up there, he's seen people camping, so I'm sure he knew. I think he was. It felt like to me the way he was looking is maybe not everybody comes out of the tents at night. He was kind of, because I think he was. It was almost like he was just as curious about me as I was of him. Maybe just less alarmed than I was. Maybe.
What do you think? So the sound. Can you describe the sound a little bit more?
Yeah, the first sound or the second sound that was around him.
The squawk. I think you described it as squawking.
Yeah, that honestly, it almost sounded like it wasn't words. It wasn't. I didn't hear words, but it wasn't an animal sound either. So it came from. And again, there's mountains all the way around him, around that lake. So the reverb, I really didn't know where it was coming from, behind me or in front of me. I wasn't sure exactly where that was coming from because it was higher. It definitely wasn't the guttural humph that I heard, the grizzly bearish humph, but it was more like if you had maybe a younger version of what that was, or maybe it was just a higher pitch, and it almost sounded like something getting after him. I'm not sure. Or maybe something alarmed, maybe I alarmed something else. Or I never saw another one though, but I heard it, is what I feel like.
So you heard what you call the squawking sound while he was still in
Yeah.
your view?
Yes.
Okay,
Completely in my view.
So it sounds like a second something was out there.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of because as soon as I realized what I was hearing, he then started backing up, backing up away from me, but he never turned his back on me. He just backed up on two legs. I just wish I could have seen more of him. And you could tell, the distance thing is hard to gauge. There's just Colorado and the mountains, everything is just so big. So the lake is big. But I could see him very well, so I knew he was large. He was much larger than a male would be, just a regular male. So a human male, I knew something was different. I knew this was something that I was seeing that I would never be able to explain, and it was exciting, but it was more, like I said, I wasn't sure. It was sometimes I was a little bit alarmed. That's, I should have been probably more scared if it were a human, but I could tell that it was different. I could tell that I was seeing something completely new to me.
And how tall, if you had to guess, would you say, like, I know it's hard to tell, especially at night, but would you say 6 foot, 7 foot? Just
like I said, he didn't look to me like he was just one of those 9-foot creatures that you hear about it. He didn't feel that large to my senses. But he definitely, I would say, way over 6 foot. For me to be able to see him on that scale and be that far away, I would guess that he was, closer to 7 foot or even maybe more.
And I think you saw something because, in general, most people, if that was a person, you would have known that was a person. Even if they're in, like, let's say, a ghillie suit or have a big coat on, you still think at a certain point you're like, oh, that's a person, in which probably you might have been even more freaked out because some weirdo out there in the middle of nowhere watching his face in the lake or whatever he's doing. And the sounds too, that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, the guttural sound was that was a no questions asked. Like that was absolutely, like I said, I've never known a human or heard that sound from a human being. I have heard it at a cave entrance because we did travel to Colorado a lot, and there are a lot of caves up there, and once in a while you get one that's not empty, but it didn't match what I was seeing, because it was almost an animal sound, but he was standing on two legs and built just larger than humans, but he was definitely different. His middle section was much longer than it should have been. It was definitely, it stood out to me, and he was so bulky. That's also what caught my attention, was he was quite larger size, not just height. So I was glad that he was so far away.
So you also had another encounter in Tennessee. Would you be kind enough to tell us all about that one?
And that came after, so that was more like probably 2009-ish, because I was more ready. I think that once you see something like that, you always want to see it again, so you can see different things, or I don't know. It just you want to see it again in a different way. But I lived up on a hill right outside Ashland, Tennessee, and it was a hill that you could only really get up to the top with a 4x4, of course. And so it was a mountain. They called it a hill, but it was a mountain. But I was completely alone that time, and it was springtime, way well into spring, and it was hot. And I was just outside enjoying the breeze outside that we had, and just kept hearing these rustling noises, and I thought, oh gosh, I hope it's not I wonder what kind of wildlife. And because I was new to the area, so I was wondering what kind of wildlife I was gonna see coming up that hill, and just kind of looking down. And this one I saw a little. This one was real. The first one was more dark. This one was a little bit lighter because it was early in the morning, so it still was it had that dawn-ish feeling, the dawn light. And I saw this thing that was on the hill, and it was crouched over. It was much smaller build than, and I thought, oh my gosh, I wonder if this is another one. I wonder if, what is this? But then I looked, went over behind the shed where I could get a good look on the downhill slope, and I could see it moving from kind of the top of its head. So it was a different angle, and it was covered with fur. It was covered with hair, and it was very, very clear that it still was, there's lots of trees on the side of the mountain. So I was looking through the trees, through the shadows, but it was springtime, so the trees were not filled out quite as much. That's the only reason I was probably able to see it so well. And under the leaves they were still on the ground, and that's what it was doing. It was swiping its hand across these leaves. And that's what I kept hearing, was that it would just run the hand back and forth across the leaves and then just look. And I don't know if it was looking for something, but I watched it move, and it was so quiet. I didn't hear it walk at all, and it was walking through leaves, so that was strange. But maybe because the leaves were maybe a little bit still damp from the morning. But I watched it forever, and it had looked up at me. I could see it. Well, I don't know if it saw me or not, because I really couldn't see its face. But it looked up towards me. I kind of got a little alarmed again, because I just wasn't sure what it was going to do. But when it stood up, the way it walked was different. It almost walked like it wasn't well. It was a smaller build, but it almost had a gait that it was not limping, but it was definitely different than anything I'd seen before. And I was trying to gauge the size of it when it stood up, and I did see it. It walked clear over to the gate. There was this long white gate with these round red circles that went up to, just so far, and it came up to the top red circle. And remember, it kept looking back at me. It seemed like there wasn't anything else I don't think it would be looking at. But the further away it got, the better I felt, honestly. Because sometimes I was equating it to an animal. If you get a sick animal or a hurt animal, they'll defend themselves. And so I was glad it was walking the other way. But I saw him walk. He walked clear up to the gate and almost leaned on it. I don't know if it was for rest or, I just had a feeling that maybe it was hurt. but he came clear up to the top red circle. And there was a house down there that I didn't see that day. I had got off work because it just kind of shimmied off into towards the left, towards the opposite of where the road was, because the fence was surprisingly close to the road. So I was very shocked that it went over there. I'm not sure why it did, but it that's the last time I saw it was, and it was walking, away from the road back to towards the woodsy area down there. And so the next day I got off and I drove all the way around the mountain base. I wanted to find that fence. I wanted to find it. I wanted to see how far that top red circle was. And I drove past it a couple times because it apparently was not the same on the other side that was facing the road. So, but I found it, and I had brought a tape measure with me just for that reason. And that top circle was 7 foot. So I knew that was really tall I knew that it's not, what are the odds? And that's when I saw that there was a house back there, old abandoned. I think it was a house. Sometimes they leave those old barns, but I think this was actually a house that had just dilapidated all over, maybe 100 years or so. And the wood was all, I don't know what was holding it up, the structure somehow, but just one of them old places that nobody had lived in for a very, very long time. So I didn't have enough nerve to go back there through it, because there really was just one way in, one way out. So, but I looked for that thing every day from then on, and I never heard it, never saw it again. I actually wondered what happened to it, because like I said, I felt like it was either hurt or old or some. I don't know. It wasn't as bulky and strong looking as the other one was, and it was a lighter color. It was more like a brown. The one in Colorado was dark brown. Of course, it was at night, but the moon was shining. So, but yeah, that's the Tennessee one, the Smoky Hills one. I did see like different lights and stuff down there at night, which is odd because I knew there was probably no electricity down there, and I always wondered if that was maybe a fire. In the Smoky Hills, you never know if it's a distillery, or you never know what's going on in them Smoky Hills.
Sounds very similar to the Brown Mountain Lights, which are in North Carolina, which are in the same region, same vicinity of the country. And I wanted to ask you about the walk. Was it like a limp, or was it just a weird?
It was a tired walk. That's just what that's the only way I can describe it. It was just tired, like a tired walk. It wasn't. If you took an old man walk, that's kind of what it looked like. It wasn't a strong, sure, have all your muscles working properly and your structure's all good. And it was a tired walk, because it wasn't a limp. It was just very slow, and arms were straight down at his side. There was no kind of pep in his step, for sure.
Maybe it was depressed.
Yeah. Well, I was looking for blood because I thought maybe somebody shot it. I don't know the hunting seasons up there, but there was no blood or anything around, and there's no footprints that I could see. But again, the bottom, the ground was kind of marshy from that creek that ran through right before the road, right before the fence. Like when you turn off the street, then you go onto this dirt road up to the fence. There's a creek that runs right there over That's honestly, that's the only reason. I was too afraid to take my truck over that bridge that they had. I was like, I have an awfully big truck to drive it right straight into a little creek. So I didn't. But I just got out and walked up to the fence. But yeah, that was shocking how actually tall that fence was.
Maybe its old lady had left him the night before, and it was down in the
He
dumps.
he should have been out partying. You'd have thought there was more pep in his step.
Right. Now, you also had an experience when you were younger,
Yeah.
back in, I believe it was Oklahoma. And if you
Mhm.
wanted to share that one, we'd love to hear that
Yeah.
one as well.
Yeah, that one. It's so, like I said, it's so anticlimactic because it just doesn't really. It's just I'm at the right place at the right time, I guess. Sometimes there's a place where I grew up, where you can stand in all four states, Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Texas. And there are reservations that run all through, that used to run all through that. I don't know if I'm sure they're still there, but when you got into the red dirt, you knew that you were in Oklahoma. Well, I'm thinking of two different ones now, but there was the first one. I remember I was very young. Um, I was definitely school age, but that was just I grew up in a farmhouse, and at night the windows came open. It was so hot in the summertime, and at nighttime the windows came open and to let the cool air in. And I remember sleeping right in that that window with the cool air. And it wasn't late. It was probably like 10 or 11, maybe 11:30. But I couldn't go to sleep. And I remember laying in the window, and it's always that nighttime light. It just casts things differently. And I saw movement. I thought, oh my gosh, coyote or mountain lion. We had those trying to pick off our little calves at that time. So I sat up. I looked. I knew. Yep, I saw movement, and put my head up and sat up through the window. And the dogs were all quiet. They were in the backyard. This was in the front yard, and sure enough, I saw something similar. That was probably one of the first times, and I had heard about it. I had heard about things like this from, my grandpa and the elders that lived around there. They would say, are we so egotistical that we think that we're the, first and only beings on the earth that walk on two legs like this, so I was open to whatever. I'd heard the stories, but yeah, I saw it was there was a half of a pickup truck, the bed of a pickup truck that was back by the barn in between the hay bales. And that's where I saw this thing. I just saw the shoulders up at first, and he was looking over at the house, towards the house. I think he was looking probably for the dogs, if I think about it. But it looked so light colored, like almost blondish in the nightlight. And I thought, oh my God, what is that? I wanted so badly for it to come around, and it seemed like it was never going to come around that pickup bed. And I kept seeing it, and sure enough, it finally came around the edge. And I don't know what it was going for. I don't know why it was sneaking so much, but it just looked like it was sneaking. Maybe it was going to the little pond in the front. I'm not sure, but it stood there for the longest time, and it finally started walking towards the house, towards the corner of the house was which my room was. And it looked like he saw me sitting, because I was literally sitting in the windowsill by this time. I couldn't get close enough. And I don't know if it all of a sudden put his nose up to the wind, and it looked like it looked straight at me. I'm not sure exactly. It stopped dead in its tracks. But this one almost acted a little bit saucy. He did not like. He wasn't happy. You could tell that what he did was he squatted down and pounded on the ground. That, of course, brought the dogs out. Here come the dogs. I could hear him coming, and so could he. But he was not. It was like he knew they were coming, but he was hesitant to go. It was almost like he was deciding whether he wanted to mess with the dogs to get closer to my window, or I'm not sure. But the dogs took straight off after him, and he didn't run from them, which was really strange, because they stayed their distance from him. It was very strange to see. He just walked off nonchalantly, and the dogs didn't tear after him like they would a coyote or something, like that. It was strange. That was an interesting one, but it just walked off like, okay, my work here's done. I'm done. I'm leaving. Your dogs are irritating. I don't know, that kind of feeling. But that wasn't so pleasurable to see. And I don't know if it was just because it was through my, 8 or 9-year-old eyes. But I looked for that again. It's strange to me that it was only that one time and that I saw it. So that was that one.
And how tall? I know, you were just a kid, but how tall would you think?
Well, this one was a little closer. Yeah, this one was a little closer, so I saw him. And in that bed of the pickup bed was, it was like 5 feet off the ground, because it was sitting on top of stuff. So when I stood at it, it was probably 4 or 5 inches above my head. So, and it looked to him like, when he was standing by it, it was waist high. It didn't look that high until you compared yourself standing there. So again, I would probably think, this was a tall one. This one was like I said, I don't know if it was because I was little and everything looks large when you're little, that your house, the surroundings. But I would say this one was over 7 foot. To me, to my child eyes, that's what he looked like to me.
That's really tall, though.
Yeah.
Were there any other experiences that maybe that I don't know about that you wanted to mention, or as far as Sasquatch or Bigfoot type experiences go?
Well, and there have been, like, I'm in Michigan now. There's a place that I have to go take my trash, my boxes. It's like just like the normal city dump, but this drive is quite far. It's about 20 miles south, into the woodsy areas. I've got 2 national forests near me. And so it's always a really cool drive to go out there. But there was one time not too long ago that as you're going back now, and again, I'm always looking now, and it seems like every time I look for something, I don't see it. But this time I wasn't paying much attention. I was just enjoying the drive, and Um, there was trees, that I had to actually. I saw something. I saw something move, and I thought, I don't have anywhere else to be. I doubled back around and pulled into the little. They had the cutouts in the roads because a lot of them are no passing for a very long time. So I drove into one of them cutouts, and I guess this was the end of the summer, so I guess it has been a few months, but I just got out and was looking, and I don't know if I assumed that it was a dead carcass on the road or something, because there's, like I said, you're driving right through the national forest, so you're gonna, I don't know how many deer and elk that I've missed on the roads. They just wander through, but something was dead, and I was turning around to walk back in my car, or walk back to my car, and I realized what I had been seeing from the road. There was a tree that was moving, and you see the rest of the trees beside it not moving, so it stood out to me. And this tree, it looked like it was shaking. I thought, I wonder if it's a deer trying to rub his poor little, itchy antlers or whatever. Wonder if it's something just rubbing up against it. But it actually looked like someone grabbed the limbs that were hanging down, because that's where the tension, you could see the tension coming from. Somebody grabbed the those limbs and actually bent the tree. And I thought, well, that's odd. And I kept watching, and sure enough, it popped right back up, like they had let go of it. And then I heard like knocking on the trees, and I cannot for the life of me think of what that would be, from animals. And I didn't really see anything at that time except for a shadow. Unfortunately that's all I saw. But the closer I got, the more this tree, somebody was just, I don't know if it was almost like someone was trying to maybe scare me away from where I was walking to. But I just don't know who would, any human that would be out there messing with trees. But the closer I walked towards that tree line, the worse this tree got. Finally, the tree just snapped. Just the top of that tree snapped, and you could just see stuff flying out, and I saw a shadow in there, so I knew. And it was a long vertical shadow, so I knew it wasn't, a bear. I hoped it wouldn't be a bear, but I couldn't stay around to see. I chickened out of there. I got back in the truck, and I need to get a pair of binoculars. That's what I need to do. But I never think about it.
Best not to get too close, especially if it might. In Michigan, there's a lot of bears, just in case it was a bear.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, to steal a line from Wes Germer from Sasquatch Chronicles, what do you think these things are?
I've never heard anyone ask that, actually. So I would say that I truly believe that they're finding new life every day in the oceans. I feel like maybe these, and there's so many questions that I can't answer myself. Like, why hasn't one been found? Why if there are these, I don't know. There's so much like man, but why are they so big? So I don't know. I don't know. I think Sasquatches are honestly maybe just, I don't know. I believe that they could be something that we just don't, maybe they're smart enough to stay out of reach of people. Maybe they understand. Maybe they're just another, another thing, that another living form that we share the earth with,
That's as good a guess as any other one I've ever heard.
I've never heard the question on that, so yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Enjoyed talking to you, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. It felt good to tell my stories.
Sure, and definitely let us know if anything else happens up there. You might run into Dogman. You never know.
I have plenty of. I have the all season passes, so I will be definitely investigating and exploring. So I'll let you know of my adventures.
Sounds good. All right, everyone. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of Bigfoot Stories, and we will talk to you on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
I'm taking things to dress.